Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start today's video with a donation drop drama so outrageous it could only happen at Goodwill. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Goodwill Karen unknowingly explodes on manager. I've been working as a Goodwill donation attendant for almost 4 years now. I've seen my fair share of entitled bees at work, but this one was too good not to share. So it's Labor Day weekend, and of course we're getting slammed with oversized donations from a parade of customers. We're understaffed. It's only me and another worker in the back. We'll call her Jenny. The two of us are barely keeping up against the customers. Anyways, I lean outside to tell the woman waiting that I'll be with her in a minute, but as I'm doing so, another woman, Karen, marches up to the door, shoves the other woman out of the way, and tosses a dirty vacuum at my feet before walking off. Karen's car was at the back of the line. Our rules state that for customer safety and for our convenience, every customer must wait their turn, and they cannot dump their donations on the ground and leave. I tell the Karen that she can't do that and that she's breaking the rules, but she just ignores me as if I'm not even there. Feeling defeated, I take her dirty and now broken vacuum and toss it in the trash, telling Jenny what just happened. And that's when I notice she's returning with more stuff. I step out and once again tell her that she cannot dump her items and that she has to wait her turn like everyone else. She snaps back at me. "Calm down, you little P-word. I don't care about your rules. I'm gonna dump my crap here and you can't do a thing about it." She marches back to her car to get another load of stuff. While this is all going down, her husband is standing in the second lane, staring me down menacingly. He looked as if he was ready to attack me at any moment, possibly trying to threaten me so his precious Karen can do whatever she wants. I walk back in with Karen's donations, which were all unsellable, by the way, feeling angry. Jenny witnessed Karen's outburst this time, and she's not having it. The nice lady I was helping has secondhand embarrassment. Then, right on cue, the Wicked Witch of the West marches back with her third and final load of junk. I try again to tell her that she can't do this, but this time she just ignores me completely, shoves the nice lady out of the way again, and enters the production area, which is employees only, where she comes face to face with Jenny. Jenny tells her, "Ma'am, you can't come in here," and Karen goes ballistic. She throws her trash at Jenny and says, "This is effing Goodwill. I'm giving you free crap, aren't I? F off," before stomping out of the building. When Karen tries to leave, 2 more cars pull up and line behind her, trapping her in the line. Karen's absolutely seething at this point, comes out of her car over to me and barks, "Go get your manager. I'm going to effing get you fired." I smugly grin from ear to ear and reply, "Oh, you mean that manager? The one you just told to F off?" Plot twist, Jenny's the manager. Karen goes as white as a sheet, huffs, and sheepishly walks back to her car where she awkwardly has to wait in line, just long enough for the security cams to get her license plates. So yeah, she's permanently banned from our store now. I hope you can get her fined for dumping rubbish on private property. Some people think charity shops are a cheap way to get rid of household junk that they would otherwise have to pay for of the tip. And our second story. Told my manager I couldn't do it all. He insisted I could. Chaos ensued. I used to work as a driver for a freight company. We used to handle awkward-sized items that no other couriers would touch. We delivered everything from coffins to tractor parts. We also had to collect things from our customers for delivery the next day. This company had a mixture of contractors and permanent drivers. I was a relief driver. I knew most of the routes, so I covered holidays or sickness. The management of the depot consisted of a delivery manager and a collection manager. These 2 people didn't quite see eye to eye, as sometimes getting the stuff delivered conflicted with getting stuff collected, and their targets reflected failures in a bad way. This particular day, I had to cover a contractor's route. I didn't know the route, so as we had to load our trucks, this took a little longer than usual. I had around 45 deliveries that day, which is high for this predominantly rural route. I asked my manager, the delivery manager, if he knew the route. He replied that he did and ordered my route for me. So I was good to go, albeit a bit late. I did say that with the volume I had, I may struggle, and I asked him to keep an eye out for me. He said okay. I got to near midday and realized that I wasn't going to be able to complete all the deliveries, and the collections wouldn't get done either. I also noted that one of the collections was off route, and the contractor had a vehicle in that area anyway. I called in and spoke to my manager, delivery, and told him we had a choice of collections or deliveries. I also asked why the contractor couldn't cover the off-route collection. I was told to call back later and he'll see if I can sort something out. He also said that the off-route collection would have to be done too. I called back later and asked for help again. He said there was no help available, so I gave him the option of deliveries or collections as there wasn't time to do both. I'll get to the time a bit later. He categorically said both had to be done. The delivery manager went home, so I called in again and got the collection manager. She reiterated that there was no help at all, so either I failed the deliveries or failed the collections. If that happened, I'd have been hauled into the office the next day. So cue malicious compliance. I called into one of the collections and asked what time they closed. 6:30 p.m., they said, so I said I'd be back later. I carried on with the deliveries, which took me further away from that collection. At the appropriate time, I stopped delivering and drove to the collection. I collect 2 small parcels, that was all. I then drove back to where I had stopped and carried on delivering. This cost me about an hour. I finished my last delivery at 7:15 p.m. I had a 45-minute drive back to my yard. As I was leaving the round, I got a frantic call from the collection manager. She was wondering where I was. I told her what had happened, and I told her that I'd asked for help 4 times and was told I had to do everything allocated, so I did, and it wasn't my fault that it happened like this. Here's where the trouble really started. The company's trunking system is a fluid one. It depends on trucks leaving the depot at a certain time. For our depot, the cutoff time is 7:30 p.m. I wheeled in at just after 8 p.m. There were 15 pissed-off guys on overtime waiting for me to turn up and an articulated truck waiting for these 2 parcels. This wait caused the whole trunking system to be late the next day. My routing was discussed when I got back as it was questionable at best. When I told the collections manager that it was the delivery manager that organized it, there were angry emails between the delivery and collection managers, and I would imagine that the logistics team would have demanded an explanation too. Butts were definitely kicked. The next day, no one said a word. I wasn't on that route, and going forward, well, for a little while, they either helped when I asked or didn't get me to do as much. Also, as I'd exceeded legal driving time, they had to make sure I went home early for a few days, so a bit of a win there. The biggest trouble these guys had was they always assumed that the drivers were after an easy day, and even when presented with the evidence, assumed that you were still trying to be fly. This time it bit them badly. There's a special pleasure in watching a management team trip over its own distrust. You warned them 4 separate times that the math didn't add up, and they still clung to do it all as if repetition could bend the clock. So you did exactly what they demanded. And our last story. She declared my inherited pool a community center. When my grandfather passed away, I inherited his house, a charming property with a gorgeous in-ground pool he absolutely adored. He maintained it with military precision and only opened it to the neighborhood kids when he extended the invitation. It wasn't some free-for-all hangout spot, it was his personal backyard oasis. Enter Nancy, the neighbor with the personality of a bulldozer and the manners to match. While Grandpa was still alive but struggling with his health, Nancy took advantage of his kindness, or rather his inability to stop her. She treated the pool like it was a public facility she personally managed. Her kids were there almost daily, and half the time I had no idea who the other kids splashing around even were. At one point, she even installed a towel hook on my fence without asking, as if she was improving the local community center. By the time I officially took ownership, I'd had enough. I wanted to reclaim the space and peace that came with it, so I changed the locks on the side gate and put up a private property no trespassing sign just to make things unmistakably clear. Well, clarity wasn't something Nancy appreciated. Not a week after the sign went up, she came storming over in flip-flops and a visor like she was headed to war. We're planning Tyler's birthday here next Saturday, she announced, like she was reserving a table at a restaurant. Not happening, I replied calmly. Her eyes bulged like I just suggested sacrificing her firstborn, but we've always used the pool. This is a neighborhood tradition. Then I said, Nancy, it's not a tradition. It was a courtesy my grandfather extended. That courtesy ended when he passed, and I'm not continuing it. Simple as that. She stomped off, muttering about how selfish I was and how I'd ruined summer for the kids. Over the next week, she launched a full-scale PR campaign. I caught wind that she was bad-mouthing me at the local coffee shop, telling me that I was some heartless tyrant. Some of the neighbors sympathized, but most just rolled their eyes. Apparently, I wasn't the first person Nancy had tried to push around. Still, just to protect myself legally, I had a lawyer draft a cease and desist letter that could have doubled as a literary masterpiece. It spelled everything out in painfully clear language. Any further unauthorized entry onto this property will be treated as trespassing. Legal action will be pursued immediately. This is not up for discussion. I had it hand-delivered. From that day on, Nancy kept her distance, but of course she couldn't leave gracefully. About a month later, I heard through the grapevine that Nancy and her family were moving. Word was they'd bitten off more than they could chew financially, and her constant attempts to play queen of the block had left her on bad terms with most of the neighborhood. But before she left, she just had to leave one final act of defiance. The day after the moving truck pulled away, I walked out to the pool to enjoy the newfound tranquility and noticed something was off. The filter wasn't running. At first, I thought it was a blown fuse, but when I checked the skimmer basket, I found it stuffed to the brim with raw ground beef. Not a little either. This was Costco-level bulk ground beef packed in like she was marinating it for a barbecue from hell. The grease had oozed into the filtration system. I had to drain the entire pool, run multiple rounds of chemical treatments, and replace a few filtration components. And let me tell you, there's a very specific kind of rage that comes from standing in your own backyard, fighting off the stench of meat while draining thousands of gallons of water you just paid to fill. But despite all that, standing there watching the last of that contaminated water swirl down the drain, I couldn't help but smirk. Nancy might have left me a mess, but she was gone. No more entitlement, no more boundary stomping, no more impromptu pool parties hosted without my consent. Nancy may have left behind one final stink, but I'm the one who gets to enjoy the fresh air. Sure, you had to drain the pool and eat the repair bill, but you'll never again look out the window and see Nancy's visor bobbing around like a dorsal fin. Now the only squeals you'll hear come from kids you actually invite, or from the pump purring happily because no one's feeding it ground beef. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.